and welcome to the Wellness with Juanita podcast. I'm your host, Juanita Nagai, an American living in Japan for 20 years. I've gone through some massive life changes and crises in my 20 years here. At its bleakest, I felt very isolated, alone, and helpless in the face of what was happening. I relied on alcohol and cigarettes to get through it the best I knew how, which worked until it didn't, and everything fell apart. I made it through with a little help from my friends, a fledgling mindfulness practice, and learning how to become my own strongest ally. I quit drinking and smoking, worked my way through my grief, found ways to forgive, created new connections, and started a regular exercise, meditation, and self-care routine. I've also become a national board certified health and wellness coach along the way, and developed a desire and passion to help others on their own personal journeys. This podcast is all about change, growth, healing yourself, learning how to get back up after life kicks you down, and exploring mindfulness and self-compassion as incredible tools available to each and every one of us to do just that. Welcome to the Wellness with Juanita podcast. I'm your host, Juanita Nagai. And today I am joined by a very special guest. Lisa Tokunaga was born and raised in Hawaii, and she's lived in Japan with her husband and children for the past 12 years. The deep connection to the natural and energetic worlds she experienced growing up in Hawaii expanded into something even deeper as she learned to embrace her intuitive gifts. Trained in Reiki and passionate about the power of crystals, her work is now primarily focused on facilitating quantum healing experiences. Her passion is helping others reconnect with their strengths, purpose, and wisdom. Through her intuitive sessions, she helps individuals access the guidance of their higher self, remembering the gifts and lessons that they already possess. And Lisa is also a very dear friend, so thank you so much for joining me today, Lisa.
It's always fun to talk with you.
Yes. For the benefit of my audience, Lisa first came into my life because this past summer I reached out to her because of the quantum healing sessions that she was offering. And I was very curious, as someone who's generally just very open and curious about all of these kind of ways and means of exploring ourselves and healing and just in general. I was just very curious. So I reached out and had quite the experience, but I wanted to bring you onto my podcast because I think that the work that you do and the work that I do, we are both in our different but similar ways, really trying to facilitate people accessing their higher self or their own inner wisdom. I'm curious though how you see your work, like how you kind of frame it in general.
I think, first of all, when people hear the word, are you referring to like your session type of work? Because I do multiple different ways because
I was going to say, why don't you go ahead and kind of give us a little brief overview of the different kinds of sessions that you do?
Well, I offer the quantum healing hypnosis, which that's how we met. And when people hear hypnosis, I think the first thing they imagine is someone on stage losing control of themselves. But this is not really what is portrayed in the media or what we see on television. This is more of a coming to my office where I offer a space for you to explore who you are and connect to your higher self, which is the wisest, most evolved you. And you come into my office and we chat and we figure out the best way for you to do that. And through that, we also have opportunities to find out ways that you can heal and move forward, which is one way to do that. But I also offer intuitive oracle card sessions, which is kind of the starter step, which I've found with some of my the individuals that I meet or friends that I meet that are just looking for a way to kind of dip their toe in this whole other magical realm, which we often talk about and we can go on for hours.
Mm-hmm.
And other than
Right.
that, yeah, that's what I do. I really just want to help as many people as I can to realize that everything you need is really within you. And you just have to know how to find that for yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
you can do it.
Yes. Yes. And so that's where I feel like we are so aligned in the work that we're doing, because in my work as a coach as well, I always, explain to clients right off the bat that they are always in the driver's seat. I am just here riding shotgun, helping you find the way when you need help, and handing you, your supplies along the way, kind of a thing. But really, you are doing all the heavy lifting, and you are capable of doing all of the work that you want and need in your life. I think in both of these ways and in both of these circumstances, it's understanding and recognizing that on our individual healing paths, that we do need support and we do need help, and that there are so many different paths and avenues to healing and to kind of exploring and integrating all the different parts of ourselves and the parts of our stories. I think that a lot of people are familiar with therapy or counseling as the kind of like the healing modality that's kind of most accepted in our culture. But there are so many other different ways that we can get to know ourselves better and get to become more honest with ourselves. I think that's really a large part of the healing journey, is just really getting honest and being brave enough to embrace all of the parts of our story and all of the parts of ourselves. But we can't do that alone. We really need others. We need some kind of mirror, or we need some kind of supportive space, even to really to maybe feel just safe enough to go there. I know my experience with you, the first part of the day was such a therapeutic, I don't even know what to call it, like session, or just, like discussion or talk, because it was really an opportunity for me to think, okay, well, what's the most important part of my story? Like, what are the most important things that this Lisa person needs to know in order to help me, to guide me through these different questions that I want to ask of myself? And so that in and of itself was really, really, I think, just so therapeutic, even though it's not therapy, but therapeutic in that sense of just, wow, like how often do we have that kind of opportunity to sit down and say, well, what's the most important part of my story? What in my history is relevant?
But I think that's what I
Does
love
that make
most.
sense?
Yes, I love that most about what I'm doing now, because you mentioned to embody, there are so many ways to heal. And from my background, I've always felt a little bit different as a child. And growing up if we're going to talk about healing, growing up, I had a really, really turbulent childhood. And choosing to leave home early and disconnect myself from everything that was, I wouldn't really use the word toxic, but just not aligned for me. I felt it from an early age, and it was affecting me on a level of physical, emotional, spiritual, but I didn't know it at the time. I just knew that it didn't sit right with me. And so I chose to leave. And through that, I thought, okay, I can do this by myself. I got all the self-help books. I was like, I don't really need anybody, because all of my relationships up to that time were the ones that caused all of this, these knots in my body, and these things that I felt were so, like anger and just guilt and shame. and they were so heavy on me. And I thought, I'm going to go to the bookstore, I'm going to buy every self-help, and I'm going to do this on my own. And that didn't work. And so I went to see a therapist, and that kind of worked, and it brought a lot of things up, but I didn't know what to do with it once it came up, and then it started to affect me physically. And then I shut down. Okay, well, that's affecting me physically. I can see that it's not good for me. And so the part of me, I don't know whether it's our just natural mechanism of protection, started to block all of that out and said, okay, I'm just going to pretend it's not there. But we all know what you pretend is not there, it's still there. And until I had moved to a different island, I'm actually born on Maui, and I moved to the kind of our city island to finish my college degree, that when I changed my environment, there was a shift. And I had found another therapist, but it wasn't the traditional therapy that I had been used to. And she was more of free, I would say. I wouldn't say traditional, but she had introduced past life regression to me. And at first I thought, hypnosis, I don't know if I want to do this, but I felt open to it. And that was my first step into realizing that there are many ways to heal. And touching back on what you mentioned, I couldn't do it alone. And through these sessions of regressing, trying to go back to my childhood to heal the root of the problem, I had actually gone beyond my childhood. And for me, I was blown away. Like, how is this possible? And I had believed in reincarnation and things of that nature, but to experience it was so different. And that in itself opened up something in me to realize that every single experience, every person, every mistake, every achievement was all connected. And that was my story. And that disconnecting, or kind of being guilty or feeling guilty and feeling bad about myself, was actually the thing that was stopping me from getting better. And instead of embracing all of that, I was actually the one holding myself back. And so there started my step-by-step journey into where I am now.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And it really resonates with me, and kind of I see parallels in my healing journey as well. I started from mindfulness, like that was my entry point. I've shared very publicly the recent events of my story, you know, losing my mom and my baby and my husband moving to another prefecture, like all in this very short window of time, was really the catalyst that just plunged me into the dark night of the soul, period. But mindfulness was my way out. It was like the crack in the door of, okay, well, here's another way to be. Here's another way to explore. But for me as well, it all started with reading about it, with books. So I started ordering all these books by, well, I had been reading Ram Dass since high school, but rereading Ram Dass and learning about Tara Brach and Jack Kornfield and Sharon Salzberg. I started learning about meditation and mindfulness. But in the beginning, I was really just reading about it. And I do remember this kind of one day on the park bench as I'm chain smoking and reading about mindfulness. And I was just like, you know what? If you want to get any kind of benefit from this, you're gonna have to just do it. Right. And so I finally, again, for me too, it was like this very slow baby step by baby step process where I started experimenting with meditating for 5 minutes at a time. But that was the beginning of the path. And for me, I actually reached out to a therapist during that really, really rough time. And there wasn't anything wrong with her. It wasn't even like that we didn't really connect, but doing talk therapy at that time, I don't think that's what I needed right then. I needed to do something. I was talking about what was going on in my head, in my heart, in my life ad nauseum to my best friend, to my sister at that time. I didn't want to talk anymore. I think that absolutely could have been a path, but I needed to process and do things. And so for me, that's what really kind of attracts me to coaching and to other kind of like, I don't know if you want to call them alternative healing modalities or not, but somatic practices though, because as you are very well aware too, you know, like the mind body connection is super strong, super legit. And so this past year, in addition to your quantum healing, I have been kind of exploring those other ways of processing or healing and releasing. I also did some therapy as well, but I'm also starting to do some breath work, which is mind blowing and really interesting for me as well. But all of these different approaches are really interesting to me. And that's why I just really want to highlight that there's no right or wrong way. And I am very much advocating for people to explore the many different avenues available to them, right? To know that there are so many options out there. But again, as you said, we can't really do it totally on our own. We can't do it in a vacuum. I think that
But I think you brought up a good point.
Even our friends.
You went to the therapist and you're like, this just doesn't feel right for me. And I think when I'll have clients or individuals that come in for a session, they're like, what is this higher self? And that is what it is. It's not this huge, unattainable thing that you have to do all these things and steps and levels first. It's always with you. It's just, when do you listen to that versus, all the other, I don't want to say baggage, but other things that we take on of acceptance and wanting to achieve and wanting to please other people or be seen in a certain light. But for you, you went to all these different avenues. And here's the thing, that is how you found your way. You went to see the therapist and you're like, yeah, this is not for me. And then you tried something else and said, okay, well, this feels more smooth, like more of a flow for me. And then you tried something else and you're trying all these different things, and it's not about right or wrong. And in my cards, as well as my QHHT sessions, I've actually added on, I recently just started doing Beyond Quantum Healing, which is built upon QHHT, but it allows me, if you are wanting to go even deeper than that, to allow channeling or contacting my team of light, or what I channel with my guides and my higher self, to also, as a team, find out more information. So that's something else. But from what I have, all the experiences I've had, I have been told by multiple clients and their higher self that there is actually no good, bad, right, or wrong. There is only what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And when it doesn't work for you, that is just kind of like a course correction. It has nothing to do with you not being good enough, that you have made some mistake and this is karma or this is bad luck. It has nothing to do with that. And everyone gets to where they need to go, no matter what it is. You will always arrive where you need to arrive when you need to arrive there. It's just not in the timing that we always want.
Yeah, that's a hard lesson to really take to heart, but I think you're absolutely right. Everything, not to be totally cheesy or anything, but honestly, every failure, every mistake, every heartbreak, every setback, but those are all opportunities to learn from. Everything is our teacher. Right? As Ram Dass said, it's all grist for the mill. It's all there to put us on the path to our own awakening and to realizing who we are at our deepest core level. And, we can call that higher self. We can call that lots of different things. But one of the things you said you didn't want to call it baggage or whatever. But I think that that's important to really highlight, though, because I think that we tend to judge ourselves just in general, but we tend to judge ourselves or get really critical about ourselves because of our individual baggage or because of our experiences. And like you mentioned, right? Anger, fear, and shame. These are really big, deep and sticky, complex emotions that all of us have about something, usually more than one thing. And I think that because it feels so isolating, Brene Brown says that shame dies when you bring it into the light. So when we talk to our friends, to our therapists, to our higher selves, when we bring these things out into the light, that is how we start to work with them and deal with them. But the other thing about the baggage I just wanted to mention, though, is that there is so much cultural, societal, systemic baggage as well that plays a huge part too. And again, it's really helpful to have another person or to have a non-judgmental, safe and supportive space to start to pull that apart and see how those different, whether they be systemic cultural things or even just things in our own family units and childhoods and stuff, to see how all of that bigger stuff has affected us, because it does affect us deeply, right? No person is an island.
I would say to that, it wasn't up until maybe the last 5 years. I mean, I had been doing work since, I left home right when I became an adult, maybe 18, like right as I was approaching 19. And I left home, and I have been on that healing journey since before that, maybe in my early teens. And it wasn't up until the past 5 years that it was just like, are you growing? Are you growing? I don't know what's happening. I've been working so hard and reading all these books of these people with these great healing experiences, and they had this enlightenment. And like, what is happening? I started to be so hard on myself because I had these expectations, and I was comparing someone else's path to my path, which was really something that I try to explain to everyone that I meet, whether you're in a session or not, that it's great that you read books. I have clients that come and say, do you know this author? Do you know this, person or this guru or someone? And I'm like, that's great that you are reading and exploring, but your path is your path. So take what serves you and what is aligned with you, and then leave the rest to not follow that. And I think going on this journey in the past 5 years, I think what really happened to me was, we're talking about shame. And I didn't realize until I had my own children how much shame is one of the worst things you can give to anyone or to carry, because it is the heaviest thing and it hides the best. It hides in so many different ways. And so once I got just hibernating into my own little cave of crystals and just getting to know myself more and figuring out, what am I so embarrassed about my childhood, that it wasn't this or it wasn't that. And I realized all these ways that I'm comparing myself and judging myself on what my value is based on things that were uncontrollable in my environment, that I could only respond or react to what was happening to me. And you said, when you bring it to light, that is when it goes away. And naturally, I started to talk about it more, not to a therapist or anyone, but to my loved ones, and to share with them more stories about myself and about what I was ashamed about. And I realized there was really nothing to be ashamed about. And all of the things that I felt heavy and embarrassed about is what is helping me to help others. When people come in and they're like, yeah, I don't know if you're going to be okay with this story, I'm like, bring it. Just give it all to me. There's nothing I've been through a lot. where some of these books I'm like, oh my God, do I even have hope? When I was reading some of these self-help books about, these are the signs if you need to see this and that, and like listing all of these things in different chapters, I'm like, what do I do if I have all of these in every single chapter? And it really
Yeah.
has pushed my capacity to hold. You talk about holding space a lot, which I love. And having these hardships is, to me, in my work and what I've learned, is opening your capacity to be able to hold more. And what you fill that space with is really up to you. You can choose to hold all the anger and guilt and shame, but that takes up a lot of density. Or you can choose to release that and keep the space and fill it with
Mm-hmm.
different things. And that is what is so great about being here in this
Mm-hmm.
timeline, in this and now, is remembering that you have the free will and the freedom to choose. And that's why I really do always support your work, because you push that as well. And we need more people to, not to say, going to a therapist is wrong or right, but different avenues or different modalities for people to find what helps them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I know my experience with therapy this summer, my very first impression was, well, that didn't take long at all. As soon as I started, it was just like, oh man, all of these kind of self evident truths or something that were like right here. But I
Mhm.
had, my own blocks or barriers. And I'm not saying that I figured everything out. I feel like I am just starting the next round up the spiral staircase of my own stuff and my own healing and trying to really process these things. But one of the things that you said in there, something about not holding on to the really heavy, intense stuff like anger and shame and fear. They are really dense. They're really heavy. They take up a lot of space. And learning to not push them away and cope with it in whatever way you cope with it, right? We all have something. And those coping mechanisms were serving a very, very good purpose originally. Usually, I think the hardest stuff that we have to deal with is stuff that we learn to do as children for survival or safety or love. But as you said, if we're lucky enough as adults, we realize that we have a choice. We don't have to continue to do those behaviors. And usually in adulthood, those are the behaviors that I see a lot of my clients come to me with, wanting to learn how to be more skillful.
But that's the connection too, I think, where you mentioned you can't do it alone, because you do need
Mm-hmm.
these connections with, sometimes it's an animal. Recently, like 3 years ago, I realized it was a tree, which is a whole nother story we can talk about in another episode. But it can be just
Mm-hmm.
a day to yourself in the woods. It is something that you feel. I mean, we are all energy, just reacting to vibrations and frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's a song, even to just kind of
Mm-hmm.
push that one last kind of nudge into alignment, to realize, wait a minute, this is not
Mm-hmm.
me anymore. Not that, you know, what you were before was good or bad, or let's not judge it. It's just not you anymore. You're no longer. Sometimes I get metaphors. A lot of what I receive from different dimensions are images and metaphors to kind of tell a story. And a lot of times it's stages that when you get to a different stage, you don't really realize it, because you're only looking at the previous you. So that is your image of who you are, because you can't see
Mm-hmm.
yourself, or you're looking at what
Mm-hmm.
you wish you were or what you want to be. And that's why you
Mm-hmm.
meet certain people to say, wait a minute, you're not that little. Once it was a flower, so I'll use that metaphor. You're not that bud anymore. You're a flower,
Mm-hmm.
and you're such a beautiful
Mm-hmm.
flower. And at that time I was saying, but I want to be like that flower. And that person was saying to me, but you're
Mm-hmm.
not. Who you are is already beautiful, and you've come from this seed, and it's took you so many years to grow and to deal with all of these storms and floods and sunshine and all of these different stages, and look at where you are now. who you are is so beautiful. And so
Yes.
I really think it's all about what you said, finding the different people. And sometimes those people are not in your orbit all the time. And that's okay too. Sometimes they're just passing through, and that's enough. And we can be grateful and thankful for that. And then keep going our way with love and peace and light of doing what we want to do, and send them off the same way too.
Yes, yes. And all of this tracks so beautifully. For me, it just speaks to mindfulness and really learning to be present and accepting of what is here and what is our experience. The ability to hold things a little bit less non-judgmentally, a little bit less comparatively, as you were saying. These are such very natural human thoughts, and it's what we do, right? Again, trying to release ourselves from that judgment even. Why can't I be like this person, or why can't I be like that person? Because you
But
are
it's
who you
tough
are, and
because
you have your
as
story and your path.
that's how we learn. Like, this is hot, this is cold. Here's the thing, everything naturally has duality or polarity. If it's happy, then you must also agree that the opposite or polarity of that means sad has to exist. And I had in college, I randomly, I'm sure this was my higher self kind of nudging me towards that, but I had randomly, out of nowhere, I went to school for business and design, and I randomly was like, I want to take this Buddhism course. And my now husband was like, what? That's kind of random. And I just went with it. And we learned a little bit about karma and duality. And now looking back, I had never really connected the dots that would be something I would refer to now, is that a lot of times we think karma is bad luck or like punishment. When we sometimes in the sessions, you will go to past lives to see where is this, what I'm experiencing now, something I have brought into this timeline from another lifetime that I have not completely healed. And that it's some kind of, some clients will say, I don't want to see that because it's like, it's punishment or it's hard. And maybe this is punishment from another life. But I really don't believe that. I really believe that karma is not punishment at all. It's really, like you talk about unfinished business. It's something that you have not really let go of yet, that maybe the timing is not right yet. And now is the time. So let's go over that and see what we can do about that.
This is like such a tricky, slippery slope. I mean, whether you talk about it in terms of karma or past life regressions, or just simply in general, there, especially like in kind of the like self-help personal development world, there's the ideas of manifestation and things like that. And I am very, very wary and very, very cognizant of not blaming people for their misfortune or for the hard experiences in their life. Because again, I could go Oberlin lefty political, but I won't. But there are lots of systemic things that have nothing to do with that individual, like where and when you're born and the color of your skin and all of these different things. They are very, very real, and they're very, very valid, and they're not anyone's fault. It's not like they manifested that necessarily, right? But what do I want to say? Like when I lost my second baby, and it was, of course, a really difficult time and a really bleak period of my life. But I remember that phrase, everything happens for a reason. And I was just raging against that. And I was just like, no, everything just happens, right? And then how we choose to respond to that, that's where we have our power. And that's where we can heal and grow and evolve and integrate. But it also kind of ties in what you were saying before about your really difficult childhood. It has helped you to be able to hold that space for others. And it has really been the basis of your gifts, of which I think you have Plenty. You really truly are skilled at whatever it is that you're picking up and doing. But I mean, like, just in
Sometimes
general,
I don't know how, whatever it is I'm doing, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just doing what feels aligned. I don't know how to say it sometimes.
But I mean, like, but your presence, yeah. But like, honestly, even just your presence, though, I think that for me as well, I think I am a much better health and wellness coach because I have been really, really unhealthy. I have lived very unskillfully. I know how you don't do things, and I know how much better it feels when you learn to take care of yourself and you learn to respond a little bit more skillfully in life, right? I understand that those experiences have created who I am and how I am able to use whatever gifts I have. I wouldn't trade my experiences or my history in because they have made me who I am, right? So it's, so it's like this really kind of fine line of not wanting to say it's your fault that you're suffering, because it's not. There is suffering. There is pain, but if you'll forgive me, in Buddhism, there is this idea of the second arrow. The first arrow is the pain, like losing my baby. That was the suffering. That was the pain. And then the second arrow is all the other stuff that we as humans add on to it. The second guessing, the judging, and at various times in my life, maybe going to alcohol to deal with my problems. Those are all second arrow actions that it's just making the original pain hurt more. And so for me, that's really what healing or growth or evolving and my personal mindfulness practice really is getting to. How can I stop shooting myself with the second arrow, or at least realize it when I do, so that I'm able to kind of recover a little bit faster, easier, better, or whatever, right? So, sorry, I went off on a little bit of a tangent there.
But because you were unhealthy, you know what not to do. And I think that is really key to healing too. It's like not only knowing what you like, but also knowing what you don't like. And having experience, to me, if I want advice or I want to ask anybody about anything, I think it's good to look at both. Somebody who has knowledge about it from a study standpoint, or who has really done deep research and logical reasoning about it, and someone who has lived it. So I always ask both whenever I'm researching something or I'm interested in something. And I think that's really important. And I'm learning more about this with my children, because I'm seeing how the guilt and shame that I received as a child, how it happens in such subtle ways, and how it builds up and builds up by the way that we view the world, the way that the words that we use, our mindfulness on how we choose to perceive events that happen to all of us, but we have a different response and a different perspective. And so I really think that, my son had asked me, well, how do you know with AI and everything, how do you know what to believe? And a lot of times I told him, I mean, in your age, we all don't know what to tell you, because we're all experiencing this new technology and this whole new shift in the way that we do see and feel things. For me, my advice to him at this time was to find someone who has lived experience. And so when you tell me things, like, I mean, we have these conversations over our coffee and as in our girl time, but I mean, really, it's about someone who has lived it and has that capacity to understand on a different level, other than I read it in a book and I read it and I studied it, and these are the symptoms and the things that will help this person heal, which is in my work, in my experience of working with strangers of all different, from different countries, different backgrounds, there is never one way to help someone for their unique path or what they decided to learn when they came here.
Yeah. And I think that it takes so much courage and so much bravery to be able to go there, to be willing to kind of open the door to your mind or heart or higher self and start kind of peering in or asking the questions. Oftentimes it is like a big kind of slam your face in it, for me, experience of really experiencing a lot of grief and a lot of transitions and a lot of change all at once. That was just like, no, really, like you need to stop doing some of these things. You need to really kind of change your life, which is what has happened for me, right? But it's because it's hard, and it's and we doubt ourselves and we doubt our higher self. I thinking about my path along the way, and it's so interesting how close I was to kind of going on the self-help yoga path at various points in my life, but it never quite happened. And I needed to do all of the things and have all the experiences that I had in order to get here now. I do see that, but I think about that. It's like, well, was that signs from the universe? Was that my higher self kind of whispering, okay, I took a hatha yoga class in college and I was totally into it. But then my friends kind of peer pressured me into being like, that's lame. You know what I mean? And so I kind of veered off in another direction. But I think that just this idea of trusting our intuition and trusting ourselves and learning to listen to ourselves is so hard to do for so many different reasons. Some of it's that baggage, some of it's that systemic stuff. But I think also a big, huge part of it is just living in the modern day world where we don't have the opportunity to even have 5 minutes to ourselves in the morning.
Do you remember what it was like to have to go and do you remember what it's like? I want to meet you. You have to go and walk to your friend's house and knock on the door. You couldn't just text them or call them or just send an email. My kids are like, what is that?
I mean,
we're talking about some of the technology. What was that?
I mean, yeah. This like constant onslaught of information and social media and all of that stuff. It's just like this modern day rush. No wonder we can't hear our inner wisdom or our higher self. I don't know. So I guess I'm just validating how difficult it really is, and also highlighting and offering that there are ways that you can start to explore that, because I think we also have this kind of soul weariness and soul sickness where we know that the constant onslaught of digital information and all of this modern day world stuff, so much of it is not fulfilling. It's not bringing us peace and happiness. So this is where the work that both of us are doing are finding ways to ask, well, what is it that's gonna bring you peace and happiness and more contentment and more aligned with your path and what you want to be doing with your life?
I think that's the most important part, is to ask people instead of have them watch and we tell them, hey, this is the kind of life you want, or this is what you need to do. We're asking them, well, who is that you? And what is that you like? I mean, that might not be the you from yesterday. You could be every day, every time we go to sleep and we wake up, we are a completely different self. And that self can change at any time. And when you really sit down and ask yourself, which I think that's the problem too. We don't really ask ourselves. We don't take the time to journal. I'm constantly observing what's happening on a global shift, because I do feel a shift is happening. There are more people becoming more conscious, which is why I'm trying to do as many sessions as I can to see what are the connections, what are the messages coming through from the higher selves and saying about our as a species, what's happening. And I think everyone gets it in their own time. It's not everything that's meant to happen happens. It's just not in the time that we label as time in our brains. It does come to you. And you mentioned like, yoga and was that my higher self and the timing. Yes, it was. Yes to all of it. It's just the timing is the timing. And people, I mean, with this whole social media and everyone, not really fulfilling their own needs, I think at some point they will realize it. And one of the things that I find challenging sometimes is to love and trust that individual that, in our work, what we're doing is we're giving them an option. We're showing them a different option. We're not telling them what to do. We're not giving them specific, this is what you need to do. Are you going to be accountable for it? We're saying, here's another way. And it's available to you at any time. You have control of it. You decide how you want the outcome to be. And all of that is up to you, because I love and trust you enough that you will choose what's best for you. And sometimes, I find it a little bit challenging because I see this like potential in this person, and I see the beauty, and like as much as they tell me I'm this and I'm not good enough and they tell me all these things, I'm like, what? I see this beautiful magic like light around you. I can see all the colors of your aura and I see so much beauty in you. And you're like, come on, like you can see it too. You can see it too. But I have to wait for that timing. And, some clients, when they leave, I don't hear from them. And they'll send me an email like a few months later, hey, I'm doing great. But sometimes I wish I could be there to be like, do you see it yet? Do you see it?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, that's kind of bittersweet. But I think everyone eventually does figure it out. And sometimes my learning lesson from doing the sessions that I do or intuitive work is that I would be doing a disservice if I tell someone what to do, or if I stop them from learning what they came here to learn. When I say came here, I mean in terms of coming from their previous life or wherever they came from before they arrived as a human on this planet, that they have chosen to come here to learn something, and me intervening in that actually does them a disservice.
Yeah. Well, from a coaching perspective, I'll tell you what, the fastest way to get someone to do the opposite of what you think they should do is to give them the advice that they should be doing something, right? It's immediate
so yes,
resistance.
do that, do this, and do this.
All the reasons. Yeah. Right. Here are all the reasons why that's a terrible idea. And, people need to come to their own path. They need to come to their own awareness in their own time, in their own way. I think that is a beautiful place to offer my listeners the takeaway for today's episode, thinking about how they can start exploring maybe the options or their own path. So do you have a question or something for them today?
I would say anyone who has listened to this podcast or has visited your site, that everything is going to be okay. And anytime you want to connect with that part of you that you're wondering, who am I? That's a good place to start. Ask yourself, okay, wait, who am I? And not knowing is actually a good thing. It's okay to not know who you are, because that means you're growing. And once you say, you start labeling, I'm this and I'm this and I'm this, I think for me, I mentioned during our conversation, I don't know what I do. And people ask me, what do you do? I try to stay away from labels, because from my perspective, when I label myself, it's almost like I'm saying I'm done growing. And so I'm always okay to say, I don't know. And that makes it exciting for me, that I don't know who I am. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm moving. And that's good enough for me. That means I'm growing. And so I think when you feel overwhelmed or you feel like, I'm not good enough, you are. And just ask yourself, what am I doing now? And that's good enough. You'll always find your way as long as you
Yeah.
check in with yourself.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I've heard one way that question kind of phrase that I enjoyed too is, what is it like to be me? Just what is
Oh,
it like to be me right now in my life, in my experience, what's going on for me? And it can be a wonderful place to just see what comes up when you try to answer that question. And then from there, the kind of paths or potential paths might unfold. So I have one more question for you.
yes.
Where can my listeners find you if they're curious about working with you, or if they want to learn more about the quantum healing sessions or the oracle card readings that you do? Where can they find you?
Oh, okay. Thank you. You can visit my website. It's evergreenosaka.com. And I also have an Instagram. It's Evergreen Osaka as well.
Wonderful. I will put the links to both of those in my show notes for today's
Thank
episode.
you.
I know that we could literally talk all day long about all of these things.
We need to
So
have a
I'm
sleepover
going
night. We
to
have to go to like some
wrap
ryokan
it
and just
up.
have a girls' time.
Yes. Yeah, we should make that happen. That'd be amazing. So thank you so much for joining me
Thank you
today
for
and being
having
a
me.
guest on my podcast. It has been so delightful to talk to you. For all of my listeners, if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to reach out. You can find my social media DMs and my email address all in the show notes as well. Until next time, thank you so much for listening and take care.